guests are side by side. Antonio Krüger, your CEO and the scientific director of Germany's leading institute research in AI. It's called actually DFKI. I'm correct. I'm happy.
That's right.
I'm happy. And you're also head of the scientific committee of the German AI Competence Centers. And Bruno Sportisse, you're the CEO of Inria, and a man of many talents, if I may. You're a mathematician, of course. You're a former tech advisor and an AI startup founder. And you're also a board member of the European Innovation Council. Am I right?
Yes, I'm Marjorie.
Welcome to you both. Welcome to the show. Bruno, let's start with you, if you may, actually. And that's a tough one, I have to say, especially in 2025. How do you define digital sovereignty today?
So I guess that this has to be defined in a modern way. Okay. First, I think that digital sovereignty is our ability to understand our technological dependencies and to choose to identify which dependencies are critical ones. What do we want to develop within this landscape, and what coalitions do we have to build in order to develop these technologies? And that's why there is a strategic partnership between France and Germany and between DFKI and Inria in order to be able to build this coalition.
And actually, Antonio, I have to say there's a lot of expectation right now on the way the global map of the AI industries is totally being reshuffled at the moment. How would you actually define Europe in the AI race? How far are we?
So the first observation, of course, is that AI is a very dynamic field. Yeah. So this is something we've seen in the last couple of years where we made progress that a couple of years ago would not have been imaginable. Yeah? And of course, there are leading nations and regions, that drives this, in particular through infrastructure and hardware, for example, in the US, but also in China. But in Europe, we are very strong in terms of talent, innovation capabilities, in particular at important intersections of AI, of different disciplines, And I've noticed also that with the more modern architectures, the importance of infrastructure is, I would not say completely reduced, but it's not the driving factor anymore. And I strongly believe we can catch up here, and we need to catch up to then build on top what I believe the operation system, of future societies that will have core at its center. And there we definitely have a chance if we act now, actually, in really this kind of small time window, that we have available, that we act now to basically build this infrastructure, and on top, actually, the ability of our talent to design this operation system of the future.
So what you're saying here is that we're still at the right time and at the right place to be able to address those questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it's the right time now. We have the chance actually to build an infrastructure that accomplishes a couple of goals. One is technological sovereignty, so that we can build on an infrastructure that is operated within Europe by Europeans, and then at the same time keep also the talent, and with that actually build software layers on top of that and move forward.
And I do hear some strong, French-German friendship energy out there, but you're still really asking yourselves question about the way we can do it the European way, to be quite honest. So how important is deep, publicly funded research in securing Europe AI's leadership? Are we doing enough or no, to be honest?
So do not forget that the table can always be changed in the battlefield of digital science and technology. And that's why it is so important to invest into research and innovation, to be able to be at the forefront of science and technology, because you don't know the technologies that will change the game tomorrow. And that's why it is very important to be able to partner. And in Europe, you have a lot of initiatives at the national level. For instance, in Germany, you have your AI strategy. In France, and you play a role within this strategy. In France, we have our AI strategy since 2018, and Inria has a key role in order to coordinate the research part of this strategy. You have bilateral initiatives, such as the initiative between DFKI and Inria since 2020, okay? And of course, you have the European level with key projects such as the AI factories, for instance. You're involved in the German project. Inria is involved in the French project, and now in front of us, we have the so-called Gigafactory game. Yeah. And this has something to do with the infrastructures. You have underlined the importance of these infrastructures. So we have to articulate all these levels, and that's why, once more, this is so important to have trust between key organizations such as DFKI and Inria, for instance.
Antonio.
Absolutely, and the collaboration, Bruno mentioned it, it's ongoing since 5 years. We started with joint projects. We built a network of researchers and also institutions, between the different DFKI sites and different Inria sites. We have addressed all kind of different topics on AI, and we also want to go a step further, because I believe it's very important that we have these binational collaborations, beside, of course, also European collaborations. But we all know that also European collaborations take time. This little bit they have thrust, of course, but are a little bit slower. But we need to move fast, and it's very important that Germany and France, as the two major economies in Europe, just takes initiative, and move forward in this respect to keep the talent also in Europe. This is, I think, also very crucial. That we provide opportunities for the young people to stay in Europe, to develop themselves in Europe, and therefore I'm super grateful for this cooperation with Inria. I think it's a cornerstone of this endeavor.
And actually, I do understand this as more of a cooperation in AI across European borders. But your question is actually a kind of legit here. How can we retain AI talents in Europe?
We can retain talents in Europe by providing them sense in Europe. That is to say, a European way for AI, an ethical way, for instance, with key applications to our key domains such as health, education, etc., and by providing them the opportunity to work in fantastic organizations such as DFKI and Inria, for instance.
And it's also important, some people say, okay, now with the American administration, there is a chance to get more talent from the US to Europe. And this might be true to a certain extent, but I think it's much more important to keep the talent in Europe that we have. We had a certain brain drain the last years in the area of AI. And my feeling is that the tide is turning, but of course we need to provide them the ecosystem, the infrastructure that allows them to thrive and develop themselves, and this is what we are trying to build together.
That's what I can definitely hear. Let's look ahead, gentlemen, if you may, in 5 to 10 years from now. What would success look like for European AI sovereignty?
To have an ecosystem at the same level as, for instance, the Silicon Valley ecosystem. That is to say, network of people able to work fluently between academia, startup companies, industrial companies, venture capital, and I guess that the big wealth of these ecosystems is the ability to be an ecosystem. And that's why partnership is so important.
Absolutely. 5 to 10 years from now, what have we built?
So I strongly believe, if we are successful, then we will have this ecosystem that Bruno described that provides a trustworthy infrastructure that's not only trustworthy for the young talent and the researcher, but also for industry. This is something I'm hearing more and more, that people are also, companies are even willing now to pay a price for a trustworthy and independent infrastructure and a software stack on top of that, And I think we need need that, and when we will have this, this will lead to success, of keeping people here, having thriving business, having unicorns in Europe, at the same level as, for example, in Silicon Valley.
Well, I guess the solution here is to dream big and dream European in a way. Thank you so much, Bruno Sportisse and Antonio Krüger, for stopping by Breaking Tech.
Yes. Thanks for having us.
And now we do have a brand new segment for you this year, a debate that will definitely get the discussion going, and how AI is transforming and empowering business. We're going to find out. But before we do dive into our conversation, we're going to see how LLMs and agentic AI are reshaping businesses. So large language models have already taken the business world by storm, of course. But do you know what agentic AI is up to? This is a kind of artificial intelligence with increased autonomy, holds a huge potential for almost every sector. Take a look.